welcome back. I'm 17 weeks pregnant and I am bringing you along on the journey. We're chatting about every 4 weeks, going through what's been going on in my pregnancy. We're going to be talking about weeks 13 through 17 roughly. So let's get into it and talk about what's changed, what hasn't, how it's different than the first time. Maybe you're experiencing a lot of these same things. Maybe you're experiencing none of them. My first video, we talked about my back pain. It feels like sciatica, but it's hard to say specifically. Regardless, that stayed gone most of the time. However, I did have a couple days the past couple weeks where I did have some really bad pain, and we've started to add it up, realize that it really does tend to tie into the days when my daughter is a little bit clingier, maybe needs a little bit more of like being held, being carried around. That's when I've noticed that my back pain really flares up. I spend a lot more time alternating between heat and ice, gentle heat, of course. So it is good for me to be able to put 2 and 2 together and to know that if it is a time where she's really needing to be held more, maybe I need to sit and hold her more and not carry her around while I'm trying to get 80 other things done. Last week it was that I held her the entire time I was making dinner and cleaning up for bed, and that was definitely too much on my back. So in terms of symptoms that may be new, I have been dealing over the past 4 weeks off and on with some really fun insomnia. And I know this is not uncommon, especially this phase in pregnancy, I believe, but in pregnancy in general, I've been waking up around 3 a.m. and I'm up for like 2 hours. And it's not like I wake up and immediately pick up my phone. I feel like that would be a dead ringer for like, that's why you're not falling back asleep, is because you're overstimulating your brain, you're using blue light. Usually if I do pick up my phone, it's because I'm desperate. It's because I've been laying there with my eyes closed for an hour and I'm bored. And I want to make my eyes tired. Again, I know it's not good for me, but I'm just not one of those people who's going to turn on a lamp and read a book in the middle of the night. So it is usually something that I resort to during those 2 hours, but it's definitely not like the cause of me being awake. Typically, the reason I'm awake is because I have to go to the bathroom, which if you're pregnant, you understand. So I wake up to go to the bathroom, and going to the bathroom, my brain wakes up and is like, let's think about a bunch of other things. Or I find that it's really hard to get comfortable. Who knew it was so hard to get comfortable in like a cozy bed? I had no idea. But yeah, it's a real struggle sometimes. Sometimes it feels like you're laying on cement. It's the weirdest thing. It's a phenomenon. Can't explain it. So that insomnia has definitely been a big one, and I've never been able to sleep in. I've not been a sleeper inner, but before my daughter was born, maybe if I had a tough night like that, I could sleep until 8 or even 9, like on a really bad day. That's definitely not an option now. So it is a little bit trickier, especially when I'm solo parenting. I can't be like, hey, could you take her this morning? I had a tough night. I would like to make up for sleep. So there is a little bit of like, okay, I need to be aware of my limitations today. I know I didn't get much sleep last night and I'm running on fumes. Let's make sure that I take it easy or try to find time to rest during the day. Another symptom that I'm dealing with is like a general pelvic heaviness. I don't know how else to describe it. I do have a pelvic floor therapist from my initial postpartum with my firstborn, and part of me wants to go back to her and see if she can help me diagnose it or work through it, because I know that'll only get worse after I have the baby and as I get more and more pregnant. So part of me is like, we need to do something about this now. I'm not sure if this is a common symptom. Actually, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it, but it's very noticeable this time. I've definitely found myself being more emotional. I know last video I mentioned that I was a little bit more moody and volatile, and that has waned a little bit. I'm not like as easy to snap or be really irritable. Thank goodness. I hated that feeling. And listen, I love a good cry. I really do. But I have found myself crying at things that I normally wouldn't like be fully crying about. Like I came home from an event where I saw somebody who had recently lost his wife, and I was just telling my husband about it, and I could not stop the tears. Like they were just absolutely flowing. Understandably, that feels like a really worthwhile thing to cry about, right? Well, yesterday, 2 days ago, my friend's dog passed, and I'm a dog mom. big dog fan in general, but her dog passed and I had never met this dog. But she posted a reel about the dog on Instagram and I was boo-hooing, like crying so hard. So I guess that's reasonable to an extent if you love dogs and you feel sad for your friend. Like, you can explain all of these things for sure, but there is a level up that I'm experiencing in emotional reactions, especially sadness or crying in general. So that's been kind of funny. I'm in that part of pregnancy where you kind of feel like you're coasting. It's like when you're planning a wedding and you've done all of the first things. You got your dress, you got your venue, you've booked the caterer, and you're just kind of like waiting until it's go time. That's kind of how I feel right now in this phase of pregnancy. We haven't even gotten to the anatomy scan yet. We don't know the gender. So there's just a lot of like, I'm pregnant, we're chilling. My appointments are only once a month. Like, there's just not a lot going on. And then when you do go to your appointments, they are very mellow. I just heard somebody on Instagram say that an uneventful appointment is a blessing. And so I really want to keep that perspective. I'm not bothered by a short or uneventful appointment. That's fine. I have other things to do. But it is one of those things where you're like, that seems kind of pointless. And yeah, I just want to like always reorient my brain into remembering that like, yeah, it might seem pointless, but like it's something you can be grateful for, that it was an uneventful appointment. Every time I hear a heartbeat, every time I'm measuring according to the trajectory I should be, those are really like good signs and things that I just need to be grateful for and move on with my day and move on with the pregnancy. One thing I experienced in my first pregnancy very early on, and it was almost consistent through my entire pregnancy. It kind of would wane every once in a while. I had pubic symphysis disorder, I think is what it's called. It's where the front of your like pubic joint in your like pelvis, there's a joint right there, or like a cartilage. And when your relaxin hormone floods the body as your body's getting ready to like expand and grow and open up to birth a baby, like all these different things, depending on the person, it can be way more painful, and maybe your body produces more relaxin, whatever it may be. So early on in my pregnancy, it was hard to walk upstairs. It was hard to take long strides just walking. It definitely, like, lunges were out of the question for sure. Wide squats were out of the question. Like, there was a lot that was super painful to me. I had not experienced that once. And I don't know if it's because I was recently pregnant and so maybe there's still some relaxin in my system. I have no idea. I would love to know the science behind it. I definitely assumed that because of the pain I had my first pregnancy, I assumed that that same thing would happen the second time. And I am just so grateful just to be able to do the basic things. There was just a lot of stuff that was much more difficult and more painful because of that issue the first time around. And so even if it doesn't come in until later, I'm thankful that I have right now. Like, I was sitting on the floor stretching earlier today and I was like, I would not have been able to do this in my last pregnancy because stretching was painful. So I'm very, very, very thankful. That is something that has not shown up yet. And I just want to say, if you're experiencing it now and you're planning on having more kids, you can carry a little bit of optimism because there's a chance it may not happen either immediately or at all next pregnancy. Okay, let's talk cravings. All of the same cravings are there that we've chatted about the past two, but we've got some new ones which are fun. I am obsessed with salted butter. We get like a pastured butter from the store and we made the mistake. I got unsalted because that's pretty common for me. And I was like, what is this? I need salted butter. This is nowhere near as good. And it's not like I'm eating pats of butter on their own. I'm putting it on things, but I definitely am like, I want salted butter on that thing. That sounds so good. So that's a new one. That's super odd. Oven roasted potatoes. Sure. Like, my husband even pointed that out. He was like, that has been like a little bit odd for you. And a lot of my cravings aren't that weird. It's like the same things I crave in my normal life, but just ramped up. But in terms of eating oven roasted white potatoes, that's just not a thing. Like, I just don't typically enjoy them. I'm not a potatoes gal. So the fact that I am like going out of my way to go to the store, get potatoes, and make crispy oven potatoes is like so bizarre, but it sounds just amazing to me. And I'll put them under like a roasted chicken so it gets like the chicken flavor and the juices, and it's just, yeah, it's totally next level. It's exactly what I want right now. And then besides that, it's still all of the carbs, you guys, like toast, fruit, my potatoes. It's just carbs, and I'm trying to remind myself, get in your protein, get in some greenery or vegetables of some sort, because really, like, I feel like I have a one-track mind, and I'm needing to like force myself to eat the other things, which is fine, but it is a little bit tricky to be like, I know what I need, and I'm not giving it to myself, and I'm not reaching for those things. Where am I at mentally right now? So I would say one of the more prominent things that I'm struggling with is the financial load of having another baby. We just got a bill for my first daughter's birth from the hospital. It came to us literally past a year after she was born. So the fact that we're still paying off her birth while having to think about paying for the next one is kind of wild to me. And I'm self-employed, so I'm thinking about saving for my maternity leave. There's just a lot of different elements to this thing that you have to juggle. I feel really blessed to have like people around who I can borrow items from, so I don't have to buy a whole bunch of stuff. It was a huge blessing with my daughter as well, just knowing like, okay, we don't need to buy a bassinet, we can borrow a bassinet. We don't need to buy a Brezza, we can use our friend's Brezza. Those things like truly took so much financial stress off of us. So I'm thankful that we can do that again. But there's just always the other things that you don't think about. My daughter had to have a tongue tie revision, so we want to like actually plan for that this time just in case and have that money set aside rather than being surprised by it. All of those little elements. So all that to say, the financial part is definitely like lingering. I wouldn't say it's like causing me to be losing sleep at night, but it's definitely like always right here in the corner of my mind. And then another thing that I'm dealing with mentally is that my sweet angel baby girl, who I love so much, is going through a tough season. Like I said, she's 14 months old, and so she is really frustrated right now. She wants to communicate with us so bad. She has very strong opinions. She has things she wants to do. She has foods that she wants to eat over the ones that you're giving her. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff. People she wants to hold her, people she doesn't want to hold her, but it all comes out as whining or crying or screaming for that matter. So it's been a very hands-on season. It's been a very like emotionally invested season. I want to be present there for her and support her as she's processing, as she's frustrated. I don't want to dismiss those feelings. So there is a lot more investing, it seems like, on a moment by moment basis. And at the end of the day, it's exhausting. But what I was thinking was, I cannot imagine if we took this season and added a newborn to the mix. I cannot fathom what that would feel like. So it's really just made me thankful that things change so quickly when they're at this age. And she'll be a different baby next week. She'll be a different baby a month from now. And she'll certainly be a different baby 5 to 6 months from now when the other baby is born. So as much as it's hard to watch that changing so much, it's also a blessing. So I'm excited about that. And then finally, we're gonna talk about gender. Next, we're gonna find out before the next video what the gender is at the anatomy scan. So by then we will know. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place my bet. I think it's a boy. I don't have a preference, I really don't. I think I'd be stoked either way, but I am feeling boy on this one. A couple things, one would be heart rate. It was really high, so I was thinking girl, and then at my last one, it dropped all the way down to in the 130s. So I was like, I know it's not a direct indicator, but might be. And then I think that's it. That might be the only reason I'm really thinking that it's a boy, but yeah, we're super curious. I just have this like gut feeling that it might be a boy, and we will see. That's all for weeks 13 to 17, and I'll catch you next time.